For a few seconds after the warning arrived, nobody inside the Capitol defense bunker spoke. The room still shook from distant impacts. Dust still sifted down from cracked ceiling seams. Somewhere above them, the Dominion First Wave still held landing zones, roads, captured pump stations, damaged mines, and half the northern grain belt. Somewhere below them, injured engineers were trying to keep the power spine alive with hands wrapped in burn gel. But all of that suddenly felt smaller than the red words blinking across the tactical wall. Second descent confirmed. Enemy reinforcements inbound. 18 hours. First wave designated forward occupation screen. Full conquest force not yet deployed. Colonel Harlan Voss read the message once, then again, because part of the human mind always believed terror might become less real if examined carefully enough. It did not. The first million Dominion soldiers had not been the invasion. They had been the opening hand. Dax Rowan broke the silence first. He stood beside the table with Rivak Kint's old mining tag wrapped around his fist, his face still gray from the report that she had survived but lost one hand and her remaining eye. We spent 2 days breaking their roads, drowning their armor, burning our own fields and bleeding through the tunnels, he said. And now you are telling me those were the ones they sent first. No one answered because the answer was on the wall. Mara Quinn stood with ash still clinging to her farm coat, the blackened dust of a grain district that had fed half the frontier. Her voice came out low. How many more? Selene Ward, sitting at a side console with one sleeve melted from the relay fire, dragged the partial file open with trembling fingers. 3 troop fleets, heavy siege platforms, atmosphere control ships, pacification units, resource extraction machines, orbital suppression carriers, she swallowed. The file is damaged. That may not be all of it. Talia Reed was brought in from the medical crawl 10 minutes later because she refused to stay on a stretcher. One side of her face was bandaged where the cybercell explosion had cut her, and her left arm hung in a sling, but she walked under her own power because freight drivers were apparently built from bad decisions and old engine parts. Nima followed on a wheeled medical chair, hands wrapped in thick burn dressings, eyes bright with fever and anger. Selene turned sharply when she saw them. You were ordered to medical. Nima lifted both bandaged hands. I am in medical. It has wheels. Talia leaned against a console. The warning reached you. Voss looked at them both, and for the first time that day his command face softened. It reached us. You bought us knowledge. Nima's mouth twitched. Knowledge is terrible. I would like a refund. A new transmission broke through the hardline, warped by static and distant weapons fire. The crest of Outpost Saron flickered on the wall, then dissolved into a shaky voice. Kellen Command, this is Saron Fleet Remnant. We are disengaging under fire. Repeat, disengaging under fire. Arrival uncertain. We have engine damage, shield loss, and enemy pursuit. Hold Sky Corridor if possible. The signal bent into noise. Voss leaned closer. Saron, say again. Hold what corridor? The voice returned for half a second. Atmospheric entry corridor. We cannot land through suppression fire. Hold if possible. Then the channel died. Dax let out a harsh laugh without humor. Wonderful. The cavalry is coming limping chased and asking us to open the door. Voss placed both hands on the tactical table. Then we open it. Mara stared at him. With what? The farms are burning. Dax said. The mines are cracked. Selene added, the power spine is running on repairs that would make a safety inspector religious. Talia looked toward the orbital map. And the sky is full of things that do not want doors. Voss nodded. Yes, he did not raise his voice. That was why they listened. The first wave was meant to pin us. The second wave is meant to finish us. So we do not let it land clean. Selene's eyes narrowed as if she hated the idea before he even said it. Storm net, Mara looked at her. That was built for crop storms. And wildfire breaks, Selene said. And dust walls and atmospheric shear. And emergency shield pockets over population centers. Dax tilted his head. Can it stop a fleet? Selene gave him the look engineers reserved for people who asked expensive questions cheaply. No, it was not designed to stop a fleet. It can distort descent data, interfere with weather control systems, scatter low-orbit targeting, and make landing zones unreliable. That is very different from stopping a fleet, Voss said. Different enough. Cellini looked at the damaged infrastructure map. Farm weather towers blinked amber. Mining resonance pylons blinked red. The Capitol repair yard power spine flickered between white and warning orange. Maybe, she said, if we connect 3 control groups, Mara's weather towers, Dax's mining resonance pylons, and my power spine, all at once, while the first wave tries to kill us and the second wave tries to take the sky away. On the Dominion command tower, General Kersh Vorn watched the second wave enter high approach and felt no triumph. He had asked for more supplies, more engineers, more orbital pressure. Marshal Urin had sent conquest. The sky above Kellen's Reach filled with heavy platforms and suppression carriers, and still Kersh's eyes remained fixed on the ground. The humans should have been broken by now. Instead, water systems still failed at inconvenient moments. Mine roads still vanished behind his convoys. Repair yards still shifted power through impossible routes. Civilians still moved like trained units without wearing uniforms. Urin's projection appeared beside him, polished and pleased. Now it ends. Kersh did not look at him. No, now it becomes harder. Urin's expression cooled. You have allowed farmers and mechanics to embarrass a Dominion invasion. Kersh finally turned. I have watched farmers and mechanics delay 1 million soldiers for 2 days. You should be less amused. Urin ignored the warning. The atmosphere control ships will seize weather authority. Once the sky belongs to us, their little systems will fail. Kersh looked back at the planet. They will try to make that expensive. Then break the farms, break the tunnels, break the repair yards. Then the people will remember they are civilians. Kersh did not answer, because he had already learned the truth Urin could not afford to understand. The people of Kellen's Reach had not forgotten they were civilians. They were fighting because of it. In the bunker, the plan formed ugly and fast. Mara would reconnect the surviving weather towers using farm crews already under bombardment. Dax would send miners to activate resonance pylons through cracked tunnels near enemy-held roads. Cellini would hold the power spine steady long enough to feed Storm Net without killing the hospitals. Talia would carry manual synchronization keys because comms were already unreliable. Nima, despite Cellini's glare, would help decode the partial landing schedule from a medical chair. Voss would use his remaining soldiers to protect the control points, not the whole planet. We cannot defend everything, he said, so we defend the systems that make everything else fight. Above Kellen's Reach, the first atmosphere control ship fired into the clouds. The sky changed color, darkening from wounded blue to Dominion silver as alien machines began forcing the weather into obedience. Across the farms, towers groaned. In the mines, old pylons hummed awake. Under the Capitol, the power spine surged hard enough to make every light flicker. Cellini looked at the map and whispered, "They are taking the sky." Mara lifted her chin. "Then we make the ground argue." Voss looked at the incoming second wave, then at the exhausted farmers, miners, engineers, soldiers, hackers, and couriers still standing around him. 18 hours, he said. That is all Saron asked for. Dax picked up his helmet. Then let's make 18 hours feel like a very long war. The second Dominion wave did not rush toward Kellen's Reach. That was what made it frightening. It came in measured layers, each one moving with the confidence of an empire that had conquered worlds often enough to make invasion look like engineering. First came the suppression carriers, spreading wide above the planet to choke communication and blind orbital defense. Then came the atmosphere control ships, long silver vessels with weather vanes like folded knives, pushing Dominion command signals into the clouds. Behind them waited siege platforms, troop transports, pacification landers, and resource extraction machines so large that even from the defense bunker, they looked less like vehicles and more like decisions already made. In the Capitol command room, Colonel Harlan Voss watched the descent vectors form on the tactical wall. "They are not landing yet," he said. Selene Ward, still seated at a console with burn gel under her sleeves, nodded grimly. They are preparing the sky first. If they own weather and targeting, every landing zone becomes clean. Dax Rowan spat dust into a rag. Then we make the sky dirty. Nema worked from the medical chair because Selene had refused to let them stand and Talia had threatened to sit on them if they tried. Their hands were wrapped so heavily that they had to use a neural stylus and voice commands to manipulate the stolen Dominion data. Every few seconds pain crossed their face, but their eyes stayed sharp. Second wave schedule is damaged, but pattern is readable, Nema said. They need 3 clean atmospheric corridors before the heavy platforms drop. Corridor 1 over the North Grain Belt. Corridor 2 over the Capital Basin. Corridor 3 over the western mining spine. Mara Quinn leaned over the map, her gray-streaked hair still smelling faintly of smoke. They want the food, the repair yards, and the mines in one landing chain. They want everything that kept us alive, Voss said. Talia crossed her arms, wincing when her sling pulled. Then we do what we have been doing. Selene looked up. Which part? Talia's mouth twitched. Make being correct very inconvenient for them. General Kershvorn stood inside his forward command tower as the atmosphere control ships began forcing the upper winds into Dominion alignment. The first wave below him was wounded but still functional. Supply lines were delayed, not broken. Armor was damaged, not defeated. Troops were tired, not collapsing. Kersh had enough strength to hold until the second wave landed. That should have reassured him. It did not. The humans had done something worse than resist. They had made every accurate Dominion plan arrive late. His weather officer reported, atmospheric correction underway. Human weather towers degraded. We estimate stable descent corridors in 40 minutes. Kersh watched the planet below, where farm towers blinked like dying embers. Estimate again after they interfere. Marshal Urin's projection appeared at his side. You sound afraid of irrigation equipment. Kersh did not turn. I am afraid of systems operated by people who know what breaking them costs. The first human interference began in the farms. Mara's crews did not try to overpower the atmosphere control ships. That would have been impossible. Instead, they lied to them. Weather towers that had protected crops from hail for 20 years started broadcasting false pressure gradients. Soil moisture stations reported sudden fog banks where no fog existed. Crop frost sensors screamed about thermal drops that were not real. Firebreak towers pulsed heat into the lower air, creating tiny contradictions the Dominion weather models had to correct before they dared send heavy landers through. In Farm Control East, a young technician looked at Mara with wide eyes. They will know the data is false. Mara nodded. Of course. Then why send it? She pointed to the storm map. Because first they must prove which parts are false. That takes time. He swallowed and turned back to the controls. How much time? Mara's eyes stayed on the burning grain belt. Enough to matter if we make every lie expensive. In the mines, Dax's crews woke the resonance pylons. They were old machines, half industrial stabilizers and half superstition, built to keep deep tunnels from singing themselves apart during quake seasons. Now they pulse through the western stone in uneven rhythms, making Dominion landing sensors disagree with themselves about ground density. A siege platform preparing to descend over the mining spine suddenly received 3 readings at once: solid rock, unstable hollow, and high-risk vibration zone. It delayed, not for long, but it delayed. Dax listened to the pylon hum through the floor of the mining bunker and grinned despite himself. Hear that? He asked the miners around him. That is the mountain lying with confidence. Rivakint's voice came from a medical crawler nearby, rough and sharp through the speaker. Do not flatter the mountain. It was a poor liar before I trained it. Dax turned toward her feed. You are supposed to be resting. I am resting, Riva said. I am sitting down while telling fools where not to die. At the repair yard, Selene's engineers attacked the Dominion beacons. Not with elegant cyber warfare, because the Dominion had learned and sealed too much after Nema's breach. Instead, they used ugly engineering. Captured beacon towers were overloaded with mismatched power pulses. Cargo magrails emitted interference bursts at the exact moments landing ships asked for ground confirmation. Repair drones dragged reflective panels onto rooftops, creating false hardpoints for enemy scanners. Hale Orson, still bandaged from Relay Chamber 12, supervised a crew rerouting power through an old train station. Cellini's voice cut into his channel. Hale, that station line was rated for civilian freight, not military interference loads. Hale coughed and answered, "It survived festival traffic in year 17. It can survive fascists." Cellini closed her eyes briefly. "That is not a technical argument. It is a morale argument. Fine, keep the morale under thermal limits." For 30 minutes, the second wave stumbled without falling. Dropships shifted formation. Siege platforms delayed descent. Atmosphere control ships recalculated. Dominion officers cursed human weather data, human ground readings, human beacon interference, and human refusal to let machines agree with each other. Kersh watched one landing group abort and circle wide. "Report," his officer said, "human ground systems are corrupting descent reliability. Losses minimal but landing schedule degrading." "By how much?" 7 minutes on Corridor 1, 12 on Corridor 3, Corridor 2 unstable. Kersh's eyes narrowed. 7 minutes, 12 minutes. Small numbers until a commander understood what humans had done with the last 48 hours. "They are not blocking us," he said quietly. "They are making every landing expensive." Marshal Urin did not share his caution. "Capture the source, the central relay under the Capitol repair yard. If their system depends on connection, cut the knot." Kersh disliked the simplicity because simple orders often hid expensive consequences, but this time Urin was not entirely wrong. StormNet had 3 legs, but the Capitol relay carried the power synchronization. Without it, farm lies became local noise, mining resonance became isolated vibration, and engineering interference became static. "Ground assault," Kersh ordered at last. "First wave units converge on the central StormNet relay. Engineer Corps forward. Do not waste men chasing decoys." Urin smiled. "At last." Kersh looked at the human map. "Do not celebrate. We are attacking the part they will defend hardest." The alarm reached the bunker almost immediately. Cellini's tactical screen flashed red over the Capitol repair yard. "They found the relay path." Voss turned to her. "Can we move it?" "It is a planetary synchronization core, Colonel, not a lunch table." Dax grabbed his helmet. "Can we bury it?" "It is already underground." "Can we bury it more aggressively?" Mara cut in. "How long before they reach it?" Cellini checked the feed. 40 minutes if they move clean. 20 if they use breach charges." Voss looked at the map, then at the tired faces around him. "Then we make 20 minutes dirty." Talia straightened despite her injuries. "Where do you need the keys?" Cellini looked at her, then at Nima. "North relay anchor first, then the repair yard spine." "And Talia?" "Yes, no hero driving." Talia smiled weakly. "I only do professional bad decisions." Outside, the second wave circled above a sky that no longer told the truth, and below it the first wave began moving toward the one relay that could make the planet blind. The Dominion assault on the central StormNet relay did not arrive as one spear. It came as a machine with many hands. Infantry columns moved through the Capitol basin from the east. Engineer crawlers rolled in from the captured repair yard roads. Drone swarms dropped low over the broken freight rails, scanning for buried power lines and human movement. Above them, the second wave circled in the dirty sky, waiting for the ground army to cut the relay loose so the landing corridors could become clean again. Colonel Harlan Voss watched the attack form on the bunker map and felt the old military part of his mind calculate defeat with painful honesty. He did not have enough soldiers to meet every column. He did not have enough artillery to stop every crawler. He did not have enough aircraft to clear every drone. So he did what Kellen's Reach had been doing since the first landing. He stopped thinking like a man defending lines and started thinking like a man defending systems. "Mara," he said over the hardline, "make the eastern field slow them. Dax, I need holes under their supply routes. Cellini, keep the relay alive even if the repair yard burns around it." Talia, move the synchronization keys. Nema, find me their timing. Everyone else, stop trying to win everywhere. Make them late everywhere. Mara Quinn stood in what remained of farm control east with smoke still rising beyond the cracked glass. The grain belt behind her was black. The lower crop beds were flooded. Half her weather towers were damaged, and the other half were lying to an alien atmosphere control fleet with the stubbornness of old farmers who had paid too much for their equipment to let invaders use the sky properly. Her crew looked at her when Voss's order came through. They were exhausted, bandaged, soot-marked, and afraid. Mara pointed to the eastern basin map. Open flood pattern 9. A technician stared. That will drown the seed vault access road. Only for 20 minutes. If the pumps fail, we lose the vault. Mara's jaw tightened. If the Dominion reaches the relay, there will be no planting season to use the vault. The technician swallowed and entered the sequence. Outside, irrigation gates lifted again, not in the grand wave of the first day, but in thin, precise cuts. Water slid across roads, under armor lanes, around crop tower bases, and into shallow ditches that looked harmless until Dominion infantry had to move through them in formation. In the western mining belt, Dax Rowan listened to the resonance pylons hum like old beasts waking under the stone. He had wanted Rivakint in a hospital, drugged unconscious if necessary. Instead, she sat inside a medical crawler parked beside the command tunnel, one arm bandaged where her hand had been, both eyes covered now, her face tilted toward the map as if she could still see the mountain better than anyone with vision. "You are supposed to be resting," Dax said for the third time. Rivas snorted. "I am resting. I am sitting down while telling fools where not to die." Dax leaned over the map. "Dominion supply crawlers are moving through Ridge Cut 3. Rivas' head turned slightly. "No, they are not. The sensor says they are. The sensor is a polite idiot. Ridge Cut 3 sounds hollow after rain." "Did it rain?" Dax looked toward a junior miner. The junior checked the environmental log. "Flood runoff reached that area 12 minutes ago." Rivas smiled thinly. "Then Ridge Cut 3 is lying. Send them 2 roads left. If they hit warm stone, they went too far and should apologize to their ancestors." Dax stared at her, then keyed the order. 2 roads left. Move the anti-armor crew through Rivas' route." Rivas leaned back. "See. Restful." Selene Ward had no time for restful anything. The Capitol repair yard had become a giant wounded engine, and she was trying to keep it from dying while people shot holes through it. Freight cranes crawled into defensive positions. Factory arms welded plates over shattered access points. Repair drones dragged damaged shield emitters into new angles. Hale Orson, still wrapped in burn dressings, stood on a raised platform near the relay spine and shouted instructions at engineers who looked only slightly less injured than he did. Selene's voice cracked over his headset. "Hale, Conduit 4 is overheating. I can see that. Then stop leaning on it." He looked down at the smoking pipe under his elbow and stepped away. "Noted. And if you say the line reaches again, I will cut your comm." Hale coughed. "The line reaches emotionally." "Hale, fine. Technically too." The Dominion first wave hit the outer repair yard 22 minutes after Voss's order. They came through coolant fog and floodwater, disciplined, adapted, dangerous. Human soldiers opened fire from moving mag rail platforms, then vanished behind crane walls before return fire could lock. Farmers on remote tower controls shifted weather vanes to blind drone swarms for seconds at a time. Miners opened a service hatch beneath a Dominion crawler and dropped a magnetic charge onto its undercarriage. Not enough to destroy it, enough to make it block the road like a dead monument. Talia Reed drove St. Bad Idea through all of it with 2 synchronization keys locked in a case beside her and Nema's voice in her ear. "Left at the broken crane." Talia swerved. "There are 3 broken cranes, the one on fire." "Again, narrow it down." Nema sighed over the channel. "The one falling toward you." Talia looked up, saw the crane arm dropping and slammed the runner into reverse just before it crushed the road ahead. "Very helpful," she said. Nema answered, "You asked for details." For a while the planet held, not beautifully, not completely, but enough. The eastern fields delayed 2 Dominion columns. The mining routes cut their ammunition convoy away from the assault. The repair yard defenses turned direct advance into a series of bad engineering problems. Voss watched the map and allowed himself exactly one breath of hope. Then General Kershvorn found the weakness. The North Relay anchor was an old crop storm pylon on the edge of the capital basin, never reinforced for war because nobody in the original design meetings had imagined 1 million soldiers and a second invasion wave arguing with weather infrastructure. It carried synchronization between Mara's towers and Seleni's spine. Without it, StormNet would not collapse, but it would stutter, and a stutter in a shield was a door. Kersh saw the gap and moved with professional speed. "Detach 3rd Engineer Spear," he ordered. "No broad assault, fast capture. North Relay anchor. Shielded infantry first, signal team behind them. Do not destroy it, turn it." His officer hesitated. Marshal Urin ordered direct pressure on the central relay. Kersh's eyes stayed on the map. "Marshal Urin wants a door kicked open. I want the hinge." The strike landed clean, too clean. Dominion shield infantry pushed through a flooded service road Mara had not been able to deepen in time. Their engineers bypassed 2 decoy panels and reached the North Anchor's base. Human defenders fought from maintenance trenches, but they were too few and too tired. Talia was still 7 minutes away with the manual key. Selene saw the anchor status flash from white to red. "No," she whispered. Then the signal inverted. Across Kellen's Reach, StormNet shuddered. Farm towers began feeding corrupted weather data back into human maps. Mining pylons fell half a pulse out of rhythm. The repair yard spine surged, lights snapping from white to orange. Above the planet, the second wave's first siege platform found the broken corridor and began descending. In the bunker, Voss watched the new landing path open like a wound in the sky. Mara gripped the table edge. Dax swore under his breath. Selene's face went pale with fury. Nima's voice came through the hardline, thin but clear. "They are turning our own relay into a landing guide." Talia's runner screamed through a flooded road toward the north. "Tell me where to go." Voss looked at the map, at the captured anchor, at the siege platform dropping through the hole they had failed to close. "North Relay anchor," he said. "Retake it or the second wave lands on our heads." The hole in StormNet did not look large on the tactical wall. It was a narrow red wound over the northern edge of the capital basin, a broken corridor between farm towers, mining resonance, and the repair yard spine. But through that wound, the Dominion second wave began to descend. One siege platform dropped first, slow and heavy, surrounded by escort craft that used the captured North Relay anchor like a lighthouse. StormNet still fought around it. Clouds twisted, lightning crawled sideways, landing data stuttered and corrected and stuttered again, but the captured anchor kept feeding the Dominion enough truth to keep coming. Colonel Harlan Voss stood in the bunker with both hands on the table, watching the platform fall through the gap like a blade lowered carefully toward a throat. "How long before it lands?" he asked. Nima's voice came through the hardline, strained from pain and fury. 15 minutes. Maybe 12 if they trust the anchor more than their pilots should. Dax Rowan looked at the map and said, "Then we have to make that anchor stop telling the truth." Talia Reed was already driving before the order finished. St. Bad Idea tore through a flooded service road. Its left side scraped raw from the cybercell blast, its engine coughing like it had strong opinions about survival. The manual synchronization key was locked beside her in a sealed case. Her cheek bandage had come loose, and one arm still hurt badly enough that every sharp turn made her vision spark. Nima's voice guided her from the bunker. 200 meters, then right under the broken rail bridge. Talia squinted through rain and steam. "There is no bridge. It used to be a bridge. That is not how directions work." "Fine. Turn right under the expensive pile of metal that was once a bridge." Talia laughed once despite herself, then swerved hard as Dominion fire stitched the road behind her. The assault team gathered from whatever Kellen's Reach still had available. Voss sent one battered infantry platoon under Captain Ashabel. Dax sent miners through an old storm-drained tunnel beneath the anchor. Mara's farm crews kept the fields around the approach half-flooded, forcing Dominion reinforcements to move along raised lanes. Cellini sent 3 engineers with relay stabilizers and a power shunt she described as temporary, dangerous, and technically not illegal anymore. Dax objected when he heard Rivakint's voice on the channel. "No, absolutely not. You are in a medical crawler." Rivat replied. "Yes, and the crawler has a radio, tragic for you. You cannot see the tunnel. Boy, I mapped that tunnel before your beard learned ambition. 3 steps left after the cold patch. If they hit warm stone, they went too far and should apologize to their ancestors." Ashad listened, then looked at Dax. "Is she always like this?" Dax checked his rifle. "No. Sometimes she is worse." The mining tunnel under the North Relay anchor had not been used in years. It had been built as a drainage inspection route for crop storm seasons, then abandoned after the soil shifted and the roof began to sweat mineral salts. The miners moved through it bent low, boots splashing through cold water, lights dimmed to avoid detection. Above them, Dominion Shield infantry held the anchor base, and their engineers were already splicing alien guidance logic into the human relay. Each minute they held it, the siege platform came closer. Rivat guided them by memory. "You will smell copper soon. Do not touch the left wall after that." One young miner whispered. "Why?" Rivat said. "Because I am old, blind, missing a hand, and still not in the mood to explain electricity to a corpse." The miner moved right. On the surface, Talia reached the outer service ridge just as Dominion infantry spotted her runner. A shield squad turned toward the vehicle, weapons rising. Talia did not slow. Mara's voice cut into the channel. "Talia, lane 4 is flooding in 6 seconds. I'm in lane 4. "Yes, Mara, trust the road." The irrigation gate opened ahead of her, and water burst across the lane in a low, violent sheet. Saint Bad Idea hydroplaned sideways, sliding under the Dominion firing angle, smashing through a crop tower maintenance fence, and landing hard behind a concrete pump housing. Talia hit the steering wheel, coughed, and whispered, "I hate everyone who saves my life like this." Mara answered, "Noted. Keep driving." Ashaz's soldiers hit the anchor from the west at the same moment Dax's miners blew open the storm drain hatch beneath it. The fight was short-range, ugly, and disciplined. Dominion Shield infantry were stronger in formation, but the field around the anchor was broken by water channels, maintenance trenches, and half-collapsed crop rails. Human soldiers used the trenches. Miners used the underside. Talia reached the base with the synchronization key under one arm and slid down behind a damaged service panel, where Cellini's engineers were already working. One engineer shouted, "The anchor is inverted. If we just disconnect it, StormNet stutters for 10 minutes. Talia ducked as a shot cracked over her head. "Can we uninvert it?" The engineer stared at her. "That is not a word. Can we do it? Maybe. If the key is intact and the power feed does not kill us." Talia shoved the case into his hands. "Great. Normal day." In the bunker, Cellini saw the anchor begin to respond, but the power curve was wrong. "No, no, no," she muttered. Voss turned. "Problem, the anchor is damaged. If we pull synchronization back through the standard spine, we black out the capital shelters." Mara's face went cold. "How many inside?" 40,000. No one spoke for a beat. Above them, the siege platform crossed another altitude line. Saron Fleet's broken signal arrived at the same time, distant but real. Kellen command, Saron Fleet approaching outer atmosphere. Suppression carriers blocking descent. "We are here. We cannot land unless you open the corridor." Voss closed his eyes for less than a second. "Cellini." She was already searching the infrastructure map. "There is one more route." Dax looked up. "Why do I hate that sentence?" Cellini highlighted a rust-colored line under the city. "Old freight rail grid. Conductive rails storm-grounded, linked to farm distribution stations. We can route synchronization through it instead of the shelter grid." Voss asked, "Can it work?" Cellini's mouth tightened. "Work, yes. Survive, probably not. It may burn out half the old rail network." Talia's voice came from the anchor, breathless. "Saint Bad Idea uses that rail network," Cellini answered. Then tell Saint bad idea it is being promoted to history. The rail grid took the load like an old beast waking angry. Across the Capitol Basin, abandoned freight tracks glowed white under mud and ash. Sparks climbed station arches. Old cargo switches exploded in showers of blue light. In the North Relay anchor, Talia and the engineers forced the synchronization key into place while Ashaz soldiers held the Dominion back meter by meter. Dax's miners cut the alien splice. Ravash shouted corrections through the channel with the confidence of a woman who had no patience left for physics. Finally, the anchor flashed from red to white. Storm nets slammed shut around the broken corridor, then reopened in a narrow controlled path aimed not at the Dominion's second wave, but at the incoming Saron fleet. Nima's voice broke through the bunker speakers. Corridor open. Duration unstable. 9 minutes at best. Voss looked at the map, where Saron's damaged ships began dropping toward atmosphere under fire. Transmit to Saron. They have 9 minutes, Selene whispered. If they miss it, the corridor collapses. Dax put on his helmet. Then let's make sure the Dominion has too many problems to aim straight. Above Kellen's reach, the wounded relief fleet turned toward the narrow path through the storm, and every surviving human system on the planet strained to hold the door open. The Saron fleet entered Kellen's atmosphere like a wounded animal running through a closing door. Its ships were not the shining rescue force people imagined when they used words like reinforcements. They came down scarred, leaking plasma, shields flickering, engines misfiring, and hull plates blackened from the fight at Outpost Saron. But they came. Through the narrow storm net corridor, under Dominion suppression fire, with only 9 minutes before the sky closed again, the battered human ships dropped toward the Capitol Basin. In the bunker, Colonel Harlan Voss watched them descend and did not let himself smile. They made the corridor, he said. Selene Ward stood over the power map, one hand gripping the console as old freight rails burned out across the city. They are inside the atmosphere. That is not the same as safe. Dax Rowan loaded his rifle and looked at the map where Dominion ground forces were already shifting toward the landing zone. Nothing has been safe for 3 days. We work with familiar conditions. The Dominion understood the danger immediately. General Kershvorn watched Saron's damaged ships punch through the storm corridor and felt the campaign tilt. The relief fleet was battered, but it did not need to destroy his army. It only needed to connect with the ground defense long enough to turn delay into counterattack. All first-wave command towers, shift fire toward the corridor exit, Kersh ordered. Second-wave siege platforms, prioritize Saron ships before they stabilize. His officer hesitated. Marshal Urin orders all available units to continue pacification landing. Kersh's eyes hardened. Marshal Urin is trying to win the plan he wrote yesterday. I am trying to survive the battle happening now. Redirect fire. The officer obeyed. Above him, the second wave broke formation to aim at the incoming human ships, and that was the first mistake Kellen's Reach had been waiting for. Voss saw the shift. They are turning sky assets away from ground support. Mara Quinn leaned over the farm map, eyes red from smoke and lack of sleep. Then the fields move now. Across the eastern and northern belts, surviving farm crews opened gates that had been held in reserve, not to flood everything, but to cut the Dominion ground assault into pieces. Water ran under armored lanes and through old route grids, turning approach roads into islands. Crop towers rotated, blocking sight lines for anti-air teams. Drone tractors with heat plates drove out from empty barns, drawing fire away from real human convoys. Mara's voice moved through the farm channels with steady force. No waste, no panic. Give them water where they want road. Give them empty signals where they want targets. Keep the food silos closed unless I say otherwise. A farmer answered, voice shaking. Mara, Tower 9 is taking fire. Mara closed her eyes once. Then Tower 9 lies until it falls. In the western ranges, Dax's miners cut the Dominion's supply arteries. They did not collapse tunnels randomly. They cut one support road behind a siege platform, opened a hidden bypass for human anti-armor teams, sealed a refuel lane after the first half of a Dominion convoy crossed, and vented ore dust into a valley where enemy drones were trying to guide reinforcements. Rivakint's medical crawler sat in the mining control bay, her bandaged face tilted toward the sound board. "Dax," she said through the speaker, "their left convoy is not on Road 4. Dax checked the map. It is marked Road 4, and I am marked injured. Labels disappoint everyone." He stared at the vibration readout, then saw it. "They are under the ridge. Good boy. Collapse the service throat behind them, not on them. Trap the supplies. Leave the soldiers hungry enough to think." Dax gave the order, then whispered, "You are terrifying." Riva replied, "I have hobbies." At the capital repair yard, Seleni's engineers went after the resource extraction machines. The Dominion had brought them to strip Kellen's reach once occupation stabilized. Enormous crawlers designed to chew ore, process soil, drain water tables, and turn a living colony into inventory. Selene hated them with a personal purity she usually reserved for unsafe wiring. "Those machines do not reach the mines," she said. Hale Orson, still bandaged and coughing, stood beside a crew of exhausted engineers. "How do we stop them?" Selene pointed at the repair yard drone racks. "We do not stop them. We make them diagnose themselves until they become useless." Hale blinked. "You want to give them fake maintenance faults. I want their own safety systems to lock their drive cores." Hale smiled slowly. "That is rude engineering. It is defensive engineering. Rude is a bonus." Talia Reed drove St. Bad Idea through the repair yard's lower rail trench with 2 anti-air battery codes strapped to the passenger seat and Nima's voice in her ear. The young hacker was supposed to be resting. No one believed that would happen. "Talia, you have a Dominion patrol 300 meters ahead," Nima said. "Can I go around?" "Yes, if you define around as through a maintenance garage, under a fallen crane, and over what used to be a noodle stand." Talia stared through the cracked windshield. "Was the noodle stand evacuated?" "Yes. Then I apologized to the noodles." She drove straight through the garage. Sparks scraped along both sides. The anti-air codes reached Voss's mobile battery team 4 minutes later, just in time for human guns to fire from a position the Dominion thought had no power. The counteroffensive did not look like one great charge. It looked like 1,000 useful things happening at once. Saron's ship struck suppression carriers from above. Voss's soldiers hit command towers from below. Farmers cut water and fuel to forward bases. Miners trapped supply convoys without wasting explosives on empty pride. Engineers turned extraction machines into frozen statues of their own error messages. Hackers scrambled landing coordination just enough that second-wave units dropped too far from support. Freight drivers moved wounded out and ammunition in on the same runs. The Dominion Army did not break because its soldiers were weak. It began to break because its parts could no longer find each other. Kersh understood before Urin did. He watched first-wave battalions become isolated pockets, second-wave siege platforms land without their support crews, and pacification units wait for orders from command towers that no longer transmitted. "They are separating us," he said. His officer's voice was tight. "Orders." Kersh looked at the ground feeds. Trapped soldiers, burning bridges, damaged supply routes, human civilians still moving through the machine he had failed to stop. "Pull exposed units back from the agricultural belt. Consolidate around landing zones. Preserve medical access." The officer stared. "Marshal Urin will call that retreat. Marshal Urin can call gravity treason if he wants. It will still pull ships down." Urin's projection exploded onto the command screen, furious beyond polish now. "You will not withdraw." Kersh turned slowly. "If we do not consolidate, we lose the first wave entirely. Then punish the planet. Burn the agricultural belt, break their will." Kersh's voice dropped. "Our soldiers are inside that belt. Acceptable losses." That phrase settled over the command deck like poison. Kersh looked at the map again, at Dominion units cut off among flooded farms, at human medics already marking safe paths for prisoners as well as their own wounded. "No," he said. Urin's eyes narrowed. "No," Kersh faced him fully. "No, I am the first officer in this campaign to understand what we invaded." Urin's face went cold. Then I relieve you, Kersh said. You can try from orbit. The command screen cut out. Above Kellen's reach, Uran's flagship began turning, its main orbital weapon charging as it aimed not at a military base, but at the agricultural belt where human defenders and Dominion troops were both trapped. In the bunker, Nema saw the energy spike first. Orbital strike charging, they whispered. Seleni's face went pale. Mara looked at the target zone and said nothing. Voss stared at the sky map as the weapon aligned. Can StormNet take another hit? Seleni's answer came quietly. Not as it is. Dax gripped the table. Then make it more than it is. Outside, every surviving system on Kellen's reach began to hum as Uran prepared to fire on the world he had failed to conquer. Uran fired from orbit with the confidence of a man who had never built anything he was willing to protect. The beam came down as a white line across the sky, aimed at the agricultural belt where flooded fields, trapped Dominion units, human defense teams, wounded civilians, and evacuation convoys were all mixed together in the broken geometry of the battle. For one breath, Kellen's reach seemed to hold still. In the Capitol bunker, Colonel Harlan Voss watched the strike path widen across the tactical wall. No one shouted. They had shouted for 3 days. They were past shouting now. Mara Quinn stood with both hands flat on the table, eyes fixed on the burning line aimed at what remained of her farms. Dax Rowan whispered something that might have been a curse or a prayer. Selene Ward stared at the StormNet map like she could bully physics into mercy. Nema, wrapped in bandages and shaking in the medical chair, said, "The beam will hit in 23 seconds. Talia Reed looked at Selene. "Tell me there is one more bad idea." Selene's face was pale. "There is always one more bad idea. The question is whether the planet survives it." StormNet had never been built to take an orbital weapon. It had been built to protect crops from storm walls, shields from wildfire spread, mines from pressure surges, and cities from atmospheric disasters. But Kellen's reach was not one machine anymore. It was 1,000 damaged systems holding hands through old wires, water lines, rail conductors, resonance pylons, crop towers, emergency shelters, and repair yard power loops. Selene's fingers moved over the controls. "We route everything through the net: farm towers, mining pylons, freight rail conductors, shelter grids, repair yard spine, Saron fleet shield harmonics, every surviving system." Voss looked at her. "Will it block the strike?" "No," she looked up, eyes sharp and terrified. "But it may bend it." Mara's voice was quiet. "And if it fails," Selene answered honestly, "then it fails everywhere." Voss did not waste time pretending there was a better option. "Do it." Selene opened the All Systems channel. "This is Ward to every engineer, farmer, miner, rail crew, shelter operator, and Saron shield officer still connected. I am about to ask your equipment to do something it was not designed to do. It may burn out. It may explode. It may never work again. If you are on a manual station and you cannot clear the room, clear the people around you. On my mark, give StormNet everything." Hale Orson's voice came first, rough but alive. "Relay 12 ready." Rivakint answered from the mining medical crawler, dry as dust. "Pylons ready." "I cannot see the end of the world, but I can hear it being rude." Mara's farm crews came in next. "Weather towers ready." Talia, still in St. Bad Idea near the rail trench, gripped the wheel with one good hand. "Freight rail conductors ready, even if my truck is judging me." Nema looked at the beam timer. 9 seconds. Selene gave the mark. Kellen's reach answered. Across the planet, farm weather towers rotated toward the sky, their burned panels glowing white around cracked edges. Mining resonance pylons pulsed deep under the mountains, sending a low vibration through the stone. Freight rails lit beneath mud, ash, and broken roads. Emergency shelter grids pushed spare power upward, enough to dim every underground light for one terrible second. The Saron fleet, battered and smoking inside the atmosphere, turned its shields outward and fed their harmonics into the net. The repair yard spine screamed under the load. Selene clenched her teeth as alarms covered every panel. "Hold," she whispered. "Hold, you stubborn, beautiful pile of violations." The orbital beam struck Storm Net and broke into fire. It did not vanish. It did not bounce away cleanly like a miracle from a story children would prefer. It bent. It split into thousands of burning threads that spread across the upper sky, ripping through clouds, turning the horizon white and raining harmless light over the fields instead of killing everything beneath them. Windows shattered. Towers cracked. A rail station exploded in blue sparks. 3 farm pylons collapsed. 1 mining pylon buried itself in molten stone. But the beam did not reach the trapped belt. It did not burn the civilians. It did not erase the soldiers. It did not give Urin the clean punishment he wanted. For the first time in 3 days, the bunker erupted in sound. Not cheering. Not yet. Relief came out too broken for that. People gasped, laughed once, cried, or simply folded over consoles because their knees had decided the emergency was over before command agreed. Selene stayed standing because Hale's channel was still red. Relay 12 report, Static answered, then Hale coughed. Still here. Relay is dead. I am considering retirement. Selene closed her eyes. Denied. Rivaz's voice followed. Pylons damaged. Mountain offended. I approve. Talia looked through Saint Bad Idea's cracked windshield at the sky still glowing with harmless fire and whispered, "That was very dramatic for farm equipment." Above them, Urin's flagship had made its final mistake. The firing path exposed its shield harmonics, and Saron's fleet was waiting. Captain Ilian of the Saron flagship transmitted one sentence to Kellen command. "We see him." The battered human ships fired together with ground-based rail batteries Selene's engineers had hidden under broken freight yards. The strike hit Urin's command ship along its exposed lower shield line. The massive vessel lurched, its weapon collapsing into sparks, its engines bleeding light into orbit. It did not explode. That would have been too generous. It hung there disabled, visible to every Dominion unit below. General Kersh Vorn saw the flagship fall silent and understood the war was over before anyone ordered it. His first wave was cut into isolated pockets. The second wave had landed unevenly and without clean support. The resource extraction machines were locked by human sabotage. The siege platforms were separated from fuel. His soldiers were tired, hungry, confused, and surrounded by a planet that had turned every road, pipe, rail, field, and tunnel against them. Marshal Urin had just tried to kill them all to save his pride. Kersh opened a fleet-wide channel. "This is General Kersh Vorn. All Dominion units cease fire, preserve medical access, lay down heavy weapons and mark wounded positions. I am assuming full responsibility for surrender negotiations." One officer whispered, "Marshal Urin will call this treason." Kersh looked at Urin's crippled ship. "Let him file the complaint from a prison cell." The fighting stopped slowly. Some units lowered weapons at once. Others needed officers to repeat the order. A few loyalists tried to continue and were disarmed by their own soldiers before humans reached them. Voss did not order slaughter. He ordered containment, triage, and separation of armed units from wounded. Mara's farm crews opened water to prisoners and civilians both, because dehydration did not check uniforms. Dax's miners guided Dominion soldiers out of unstable tunnels with the same irritation they used on foolish apprentices. Selene's engineers shut down extraction machines and then immediately began arguing about how to repair the damage. Talia drove wounded humans and captured Dominion troops in the same convoy, telling both groups that anyone bleeding on her seats would be billed after the war. Nima, still wrapped in bandages, helped broadcast Urin's strike order across Dominion channels. The truth traveled faster than the surrender. At sunset, Kersh met Voss, Mara, Dax, and Selene in the damaged capital repair yard. The air smelled of burnt metal, wet soil, smoke, and the first honest quiet after battle. Kersh removed his sidearm and placed it on the ground. "I surrender the invasion force under my command," he said. Voss nodded. "Accepted." Kersh looked past him at the broken cranes, patched rails, muddy farm trucks, wounded miners and engineers already repairing machines that had nearly killed them with overload. Why send farmers, miners, and engineers against 1 million soldiers? Mara looked at the blackened fields beyond the yard. Because soldiers know how to take ground, she said. We know how to make ground refuse you, Dax added, and you kept stepping on things we built. Selene wiped grease from her cheek. Next time, read the maintenance notes. No one celebrated like the world had not been wounded. They counted the dead. They treated the injured. They reopened water lines. They pulled trapped miners from old shafts. They fed prisoners under guard. They sent thanks to Sauron's battered ships. In the northern grain belt, Mara knelt in blackened soil and pressed one seed into the ash with shaking fingers. Dax stood behind her with Rivaz's medical crawler nearby. Selene restarted a repaired pump, and water moved through a cracked pipe like the planet taking its first careful breath. Talia and Nima sat on the hood of Saint Bad Idea, bruised, bandaged, exhausted, and alive. Voss looked up at the sky where the second wave had come and failed. The Empire had sent soldiers to conquer Kellen's Reach. Humanity had sent the people who had built it. And when the world chose a side, it remembered their hands.